Welcome back to Patriot Network TV. You've heard about the so-called super committee. I want to talk to you about what these 12 people are supposed to do, and I want to talk to you about why it is constitutionally, intellectually, and legislatively wrong. Number one, from a constitutional standpoint, we are a representative republic. We have 535 members in the Congress, 100 in the Senate, 435 in the House. There are 117 standing committees. They are to legislate by committee to the whole. In other words, every single committee, standing committee, 117 of them, have a responsibility to the voters who elected them to represent them to come into Washington, D.C. and in open, in public, in the full view, with sunshine as the disinfectant, tell you, the American voter, what they're doing. The so-called super committee is going to meet in private. They're not going to release the records. There's going to be no transparency. All, if they don't violate the letter of the Constitution, they certainly violate the intent of the Constitution. Another way to think about this, 535 versus 12. We as Americans, deep down in our DNA, we're coded to resist elitism. We believe in an egalitarian world where every rugged individualist gets to go out and break their own back doing their own stuff, because by God, that's what Jefferson and the founders had in mind, to be free in between the ground and God. We don't want 12 guys or 12 women or 12 men and women meeting in private in secret with no transcripts and no transparency telling us what we're going to do. 535 elected representatives in a representative republic form of government that democratically votes on the representatives should meet in public in the full view of the electors. Our system depends on the consent of the governed. Lincoln said that we want to have, what are the three requirements? By the people, of the people, for the people. When you have 12 people making $1 trillion in cuts, or 2 trillion, or 4 trillion, or whatever bogus amount they're trying to sell you, that is government of the elite, by the elite, for the elite. How do I have input to Paul Gosar, our elected CD1 representative, to get change, to get my ideas translated, which is the purpose of a representative government, to translate my ideas by my representative into my budget? And what's the budget? It's the operational statement of our mission as a country. And what's our mission? The Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and we are endowed by our Creator. God Almighty endows us with certain inalienable rights, among those life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We didn't vote for no stinking 12-man committee to tell us what we're going to cut and not cut. And we especially didn't vote for a 12-person committee to come back and say, you got two choices. We're going to cut off your legs or cut off your arms. Which do you want? And that's what's going to happen. The trigger mechanism, either $500 billion of cuts in Medicare, have grandma die, or $500 billion of cuts in defense, have all of us die. Legs or arms, you be the judge. That's not compromise. That's not even good management. If you go to any company that's well managed, go down to Intel and ask them how they run the shop. They'll say, we do Lean Six Sigma. That means that they start with a simple question. What exactly do we wish to accomplish? And then they measure and measure and measure, and then they improve and improve and improve, and they go from being 99% right to 99.99 to 99.99999. They go to the point where they're making one error out of every 20 million product. 1 out of 20 million. U.S. federal government in Medicare, $535 billion, admits to $120 billion in fraud. That's 25%. That's $1 trillion ratio. That's $1 trillion % difference between what Intel can achieve and what the U.S. federal government achieves. But nobody says anything about it. Because after all, it's Washington, D.C. We've always done it this way. We've always been inefficient. Maybe that's why we're $16 trillion in debt. Constitutionally, the super committee is wrong. Intellectually, it's wrong. Who in the world wants to be ruled by 12 oligarchs? Who wants to be ruled by 12 people who were appointed by the furthest right and furthest left person in the Congress? I don't know about you, but there's nothing that John Kerry has to say that I want to live by. And if you look at the members of the Senate who are on this committee, they're as far to the left as you can get. They're so far to the left they couldn't stand upright if a hurricane was blowing against them. Intellectually, it's wrong. We believe in egalitarian approaches of the people, by the people, for the people. This is of the elite, by the elite, for the elite. Finally, legislatively, the grand bargain is just a way to say we don't have, every time you hear the word bipartisan, I want you to hear the word one-party rule. That's what the old Soviet Union was, totally bipartisan. Comrade, we do it my way, and you shut up. That's not how we do it in the United States. Legislatively, you got to do what's possible. You got to start every day in the House by asking a simple question. Who's got a good idea today? Even if it's a tiny good idea, we pass that and we build from there. We don't go for the grand bargain because the grand bargain is based on what? Consensus and compromise. In other words, the very worst of both extremes. You can't run this country without cutting spending by 50%. In the next decade, we must cut spending by 50%. We took in $2.2 trillion in taxes last year. We got plenty of tax revenue. Our problem is spending. We're going to spend $3.8 trillion. The $1.6 trillion deficit, the spending cuts, so-called, that they've talked about, they're not even 3% of that. We got to do it. We got to do it now. The super committee is wrong. Write to your representative, write to your senator, write to the president and say, get a backbone. Act like an adult and cut spending and vote in open, vote transparently, and vote where we can see you. We don't like this elitist, non-egalitarian, in private, no transparency, behind closed doors, smoke-filled rooms, crapola. This is not the way the United States of America is meant to operate. God bless you. God bless the USA.